familiar with bungalow courts as a concept. What are they?
Well, let me just first say that most people who think about architectural and historic preservation think about the big mansions and the great giant buildings downtown. But bungalows are a wonderful part of American architecture. They're small, they're human scale, and they're very much rich in their architectural heritage. Back around 1909 in California, bungalows were very much the rage, and a new phenomenon emerged. It was called a bungalow court, where a series of bungalows would be built on a piece of property facing each other with a sidewalk or a landscape area in between. So instead of buildings facing the street, they faced each other, which created a little micro community. And developers saw this as a wonderful way to not only get a lot of buildings on a small piece of property and thereby make more profits, but also it created a community in itself of houses that were oftentimes identical, row after row. And within 2 years after the idea that emerged from California, we were having bungalow courts built in Jacksonville. Perhaps the most famous one in Jacksonville is called Dancy Terrace. Right in the middle of our Springfield neighborhood in 1911, a man named Joel Tucker built Jacksonville's first bungalow court, which is actually one of the oldest bungalow courts still remaining in America. He built 2 rows of 12 small houses facing each other. It's on a street called Riddell Street. It's 1 block long, and Riddell Street is Dancy Terrace Bungalow Court.
And this is between Hubbard and Main Street, basically.
That's right. But it's almost invisible. I drove by it many, many times and never saw it because...
Well, you feel like you've kind of found a little secret land when you find it for the first time because it's so neat and it's just this little enclosed community. It's like a little secret garden.
And you can read stories online about people that grew up at Dancy Terrace and how they knew all their neighbors. It was the American dream, really, of having a very inexpensive home that was well built and that had a community of neighbors and friends and caretakers built right into it. And by being in the heart of the Springfield neighborhood, all you had to do was walk a block or two to go to the restaurants and the other stores, and yet your little island of your home and your community was right there together.
These are small homes. They're like 1,000 square feet or so?
1,000 square feet. I mean,
the original tiny home community kind of,
these
not
were the
quite
original
tiny
homes, but that was the kind of the concept of a bungalow to begin with. Bungalows came popular around the turn of the century, around the 1900s, as a place that would be a quality home for blue-collar workers that had many of the same qualities of the more wealthy mansions. You'd have built-in furniture, a nice front porch. That was essential to a bungalow, is to have a front porch so you could sit there and talk to your neighbors, and also to have, they were most always made of wood, at least to some extent, and so they were inexpensive, affordable, livable, and had a message that is kind of parallel with democracy. This is the American dream that even a small family can have a home of their own, which was very important at the time.
This court, this Dancy, fell into disrepair at some point, though. It has had some tough times.
Yes, it was abandoned. I think at one point only 2 of the houses were even occupied, and recently they have been lovingly restored. And the wonderful thing is, they are a symphony of different bright colors. Every house is pink and blue and red and yellow. And so when you stand in the axis of Dancy Terrace and look down, you see this wonderful row of houses on each side that look like almost a Bahama village with all these wonderful bright colors that are cheerful and delightful and make living there even more delightful, I'm sure.
There is another court that is a little different looking. Homes are a little bigger, and there's fewer of them. Hoyt Terrace.
Yeah, five blocks away on West 5th Street is Hoyt Terrace, and it really was not built as a bungalow court, but kind of was a precursor to that, in that a man bought a big piece of land in Springfield on West 5th Street. His name was John Cooker, and in 1895, he built a home there that was not facing West 5th Street, but was facing the interior of the lot. And then over the years, he built several more, 5 or 6 other houses, all of them facing each other. And so today they are this little compound of mostly 2-story houses, unlike the Dancy Terrace. These 2-story houses face each other, and they are lined with an axis of landscaping and fountains that make this a little enclave unto itself that is so beautiful and so livable. And again, the same traits of Dancy Terrace are there. You have your neighbors next to you, you have your own privacy, and yet you have a wonderful little mini community within itself.
Why don't you think we see more of those? Why did they fall out of fashion?
Well, people like privacy, and I think that may be part of it. They like their own home that they can build a little picket fence around and not have to put up with those nosy neighbors. So the little micro community that I've extolled does have its disadvantages. If you have a neighbor that likes to sing opera at 2 o'clock in the morning or has a vicious dog that wants to bite you, those are reasons maybe to have your own home separate. But I do want to tell you there's another bungalow court that is not widely known. It's over on the west side off of Myrtle Avenue. Now, this little place was called Oneida Bungalow Court. It's in the Louisville subdivision, and this was in terrible repair for many years and still needs much restoration. But there were 27 small frame homes, and these were there were 3 rows of them. So unlike Dancy Terrace, where you have a row of houses on either side, these have 3 rows of houses which face 2 rows of them face each other, and they're now beginning restoration. And within a year or two, hopefully, we'll see Oneida Bungalow Court as one of Jacksonville's new historic clusters.
That's excellent. Well, Dr. Wayne Wood, it's so fun to talk to you about these interesting architectural gems around Jacksonville, and I love the bungalow court, so thanks so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you. There are a lot of hidden mysteries out there in Jacksonville's architecture that we'd like to tell people about, not only for the joy of knowing something new, but also to help preserve our city's heritage.
And we should say all of these are included in your book, the 2nd edition of Jacksonville's Architectural Heritage.
That's correct, and that's what I do for fun.
All right. Thanks for being here, and we'll be right back.
Thank you, Ann.